And now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Can you believe it? 20 years ago, it was 20 years ago, she and a couple of friends got together around a kitchen table. They were discussing what they thought was needed, a forum for women to network, for women to share ideas and learn from each other. And the Professional Businesswomen of California was born. Well, since then, Jackie Spear has herself been a pioneer of women's advancement on every level, and unquestionably, she has been an inspiration to each and every one of us. Please welcome to the stage the founder of PBWC, United States Congresswoman representing the 12th District of California, Jackie Spear.
Thank you. And thank you, Sydney, for that rambunctious introduction. Now, I want you to know, Sydney Kahara got up at 2:30 this morning to do the morning news show from 5 to 7. She looks incredible, doesn't she? Let's say it. Let's put hands up for Sydney. She's a great role model for young women and a great community leader, and I'm honored that she participated in PBWC today. I want to take a moment first, and I want you to look at the back of your programs and take special note of our premier sponsors, Wells Fargo, Oracle, Bank of America, and then the other sponsors, Abbott, Business Journal of San Francisco, AAA, Deloitte, Cisco, CBS 5, the San Francisco Business Times, KGO Radio, Peppercom, Chevron, American Airlines, State Farm, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, joined by BART, Visa, Sybase. Shout it out for your companies, Charles Schwab, PG&E, and Lockheed Martin. Thank you all very, very much. Special thanks to Ann Barlow, the president of PBWC, Helen Mendel, and Chris Yeltsin, the directors of PBWC, for helping put together an incredible conference. And the women that serve on the board of directors of this organization do so out of a love to make women move forward. They get nothing out of it except the psychic pay that you give them when you come up to them at a conference today and say, "Thank you, you've changed my life." So would the members of the board of directors of PBWC please stand up once again so we can say thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, each year I say to myself, we can't top this one. We can't top this one. And every year it seems like we do one better. Of course, I'm not just a passive observer of PBWC. As you heard on the video, PBWC grew out of Women's Day, an event that I started when I was 32 years old and a member of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. I would be insincere if I said we never thought it would grow so big. But like a parent who can't help but marvel when you see your little baby grow up, I will say that looking out at all of you, it takes my breath away. In many ways, PBWC is our baby. In fact, in 1989, when we held our first conference, I brought my then infant son, Jackson, to the conference. I hate to tell you this, but he is now a junior in college. But today, 20 years later, I have the privilege of introducing to you my beautiful, talented 14-year-old freshman who is part of the Young Women's Program today, Stephanie Sierra. Stephanie, stand up. As we sit here, successful and motivated, it might be easy to forget that the roots of PBWC really came at a different time with a very interesting hearing. It was the early 1980s, and I convened a hearing on what was then called the feminization of poverty. At the time, the face of poverty was usually a man down on his luck, maybe a drug addict or an alcoholic. In fact, our president at the time, Ronald Reagan, suggested that many of the homeless were men who choose to be homeless. But there was growing evidence that the real face of poverty in America was that of a single mother, certainly not homeless by choice, someone who was not receiving her court-ordered child support, who was making less than a man if she were working at all, with children to feed and clothe and to care for. And if she was being abused, and by the way, domestic violence is the leading cause of homelessness for women, she likely had no safe place to go and had to deal with a law enforcement establishment untrained at best and at worst indifferent to her plight. In fact, we used to make note of the fact that there were 3 times as many animal shelters in California as there were battered woman shelters in California. Those hearings led us to Women's Day to help women re-enter the workforce, which in turn inspired PBWC. So while we're busy networking and learning and celebrating our successes today, let's not forget our roots. It's our mission to lift up all women, to increase opportunities for each little girl, and to level the playing field for everyone. So where were we in 1989? More women were working than ever before. According to a December 1989 Time magazine article, 57% of the women were in the workforce compared to just 34% in 1960. The story also reported that women were making 66 cents for every dollar earned by a man. The cover of the issue said it quite interestingly. The title was, "Women Face the 90s. Under the title it said, "In the 80s, they tried to have it all. Now they've just plain had it. Is there a future for feminism?" Women were at a crossroads in 1989. There was a sense that things would be more equal. Sandra Day O'Connor and Geraldine Ferraro had made history in a very public way. More women ran and more were elected to public office, and the number and variety of women-owned businesses was growing exponentially. But there was a disconnect between the everyday, often anonymous advances that professional women were making and the more outspoken and sometimes divisive public discourse on women's issues. PBWC helped bridge that disconnect by bringing women together in an environment where they could explore their differences and discover their similarities. PBWC allowed women to identify the power they had by seeing it in other women and realizing, I can do it too. Here we are 20 years later, and PBWC is still doing it. And while technological advances had opened new opportunities for everyone, there are still fundamental inequities that women combat every day. The American Association of University Women recently released a study showing that California women now make 85% of their male counterparts. There is no doubt that this is an improvement over the 66 cents in 1989, but it isn't good enough. Here we are in 2009, and Congress finally made it illegal with the Lilly Ledbetter Act to discriminate against an employee because of gender. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this case. You see, Lilly Ledbetter was a manager at Goodyear Tire for almost 20 years. And at the end of her career then, when she was just about to retire, someone slipped her a note in her mailbox in her building telling her that she had been making less than her male counterparts at the company. Now, she always thought that since Goodyear was a federal contractor, they would always be doing things by the merit, that they would always be doing things as appropriate. But as it turned out, it was clearly the case that she was owed probably $200,000 to $300,000 in back pay.